Asking for a pen.
1 minute. We're ready.
Go. Hey, folks, thank you for coming. At this time, we're going to call the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, July 29, 2024 to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Richards,
Here.
Alderperson Denham. Here. Commissioner Green,
Here.
Commissioner Hillis,
Here.
Chairperson Groman,
Here?
Vice Chairperson Dieger, Commissioner Morial, Commissioner Martinowski,
Here.
Commissioner O'Day,
Here.
Commissioner Gore.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, if you please stand and follow along, we'll have a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This is a time in our meeting where members of the public can speak regarding city business that this planning commission has jurisdiction or authority to take action on, which is not listed on the agenda for tonight's public hearing. We ask that you be mindful of everybody's time and refrain from making comments that are repetitive. We ask the members of the public to please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. For any meeting where 10 or more, how many do we have signed up for public comment? None?
None.
Well, that's easy. We'll move on. The first item on the regular agenda is the approval of the Planning Commission meetings for the June 4, 2024 regular meeting. Has the commission had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any comments? I'll now entertain a motion to approve the June 4th, 2024 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now call for a vote.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Alderperson Denham,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis,
Yes.
Chairperson Groman,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Gore.
Yes.
We have 8 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Okay. First item for the public hearing is a request for municipal code amendments throughout Chapter 94, including but not limited to the industrial zoning district, noise regulations, special use requirements for data centers, data mining, and similar industries. Can I get a motion to bring this item to the floor?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll now open the public hearing for this item. We want to remind you that our legislative body, the Board of Aldermen, will conduct a special meeting and public hearing on this proposed ordinance on Thursday, August 1st at 6 p.m. right here in Hall. Would staff like to provide information for this item?
Good evening. I'm Holly Dodge with the Law Department. I'm the whole department, but it's super cool. And I am here to provide to you the information as to where we are in regards to the recommendations for industrial use regulations within the zoning. So as you may recall, we had a moratorium for 100 days, a moratorium of applications and permits to be issued regarding data centers and cryptocurrency mining centers. That happened on June 4th. We then had, today we are having our public hearing in regards to that. So we're almost 2 months after that point. Then this will go to a special meeting if a resolution is passed to support these changes. Today, it will go for a first hearing for a special meeting with the Board of Aldermen on August 1st. Then the Board of Aldermen will have a second read on August 13th. The moratorium was set for 100 days. It is set to expire on September 12th. If it passes at first and second read, then it would go into effect on August 13th. And to reopen, we would have to present to the board to set aside the remainder amount of the moratorium. We did publish this for neighborhood notice for people to be aware of the proposed changes. We also took comments from the public in regards to this. Our recommendations, which we have posted in regards to the municipal code for Chapter 94, the zoning code, are in 3 different articles. Article 1, for our general definitions, we had to make changes to those definitions so that they were up to date. The prior definitions were very out of date. Article 4 is the use table and the use standards, and then the special use standards. So we have changes to all 3 of those. And then also in regards to landscaping and screening, which is in Article 7. The code amendments that we are going to address will look at special use requirements, buffering to residential uses and districts, manufactured non-residential engineered units, and I'll talk to you about those in just a minute. That comes up first in definitions. Site requirements, noise regulations and decibel maximums, as well as energy consumption to the extent that it can be regulated. So first, let's start off with the definition changes. The prior definitional standard we had for a data center was very out of date. So what we did was took the prior definition and added in the various types of data center processing that we see that may also involve Bitcoin mining, crypto processing, virtual private networks, virtual servers. So in the work that we did to come up with these recommendations, it entailed us looking at other states and other municipalities' changes to address crypto mining. We also looked at what concerns were submitted from our public, from the communications from the various alders as well. Going into the definitions, we had to come up with a term for the building, the structure that houses the processing centers. And those are not always, and they are not commonly held in your normal structure. So it's not a primary structure, it's an accessory use, but none of our descriptions for accessories really fit what these are. These are manufactured, so they're intended for this use by their producer. They are engineered. They have a lot of electronics in them. They have a lot of heat and energy going into these, and they're giving off heat and energy, and then a cooling process, as well as the data processing. So because of all of those things, it needs to be engineered so it doesn't short circuit and melt out. It is non-residential, so we want to be sure this doesn't have to do with your she shed, your he shed, or any of those things. This is something that is intended as a structure. It is a unit. It is not a house, but it is a structure. So we defined it in that way so that we encapsulated the intent of the producer who makes these that will be used so that they can ensure that they meet the regulations. And the regulations are difficult to understand and difficult to track. So this would then apply to the use in that data center processing. Now that's totally different than when I take a big industrial structure and I have in the back, not as a primary use, but I have in the back my backup storage. That's not going to apply here, and you'll see that in the other definitions. We also created, because as part of that definition for data centers, we gave you definitions for cryptocurrency data center, commercial cryptocurrency mining, and cryptocurrency server farms. Those were terms that we found used in other regulations that seem to encapsulate this type of industry. We have also sound definitions because we have to, if we're going to regulate the sound, we have to define what those terms are to ensure that they are kept within those maximum uses. So we have decibel, noise, noise disturbance, and sound pressure level defined as well. Then we had to look at our table for permitted uses. Currently, if you didn't pass this change, these uses can be put into play in an industrial area. It's permitted, meaning it's allowed. So in both the business district, which is kind of light industrial, and the industrial area, it is completely permitted. So we changed that, took it out of the business area, and are recommending that in the industrial area, it only be allowed by special use permit. And then we referenced those changes that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Then in 9461, under use and structure standards, under sub F, that's industrial uses. So all of your industrial uses in the entire city have these restrictions. We modified D just to make it clearer to understand, and then we added into E to address the dissemination or the creation of vibration or noise. And so those are already regulated under Chapter 58, which is our general code of offenses, which is our noise provision in 58-262. And we list the various ways noise can be a problem and should be regulated within the city. That is enforced by the police department. And then any other regulations within Chapter 94 that are industrial uses. So our last is the special use standards for a data center. These are regarding a data center, and remember, we're encapsulating all of those various other terms in the definition of a data center. So we created and are recommending site requirements with the key points looking at there needs to be a primary structure. We see a lot of concerns in most of the articles and the concerns from citizens as well as other concerned people in regards to these properties that they are too transient. And so they can't be enforced and they just kind of eat up and leave a mess. So one of the ways to ensure that that is not going on is by having a primary structure. That primary structure does require the standards for a building, because with the menus so those are the little accessory structures, those are not required to be on a foundation. So those can pick up and go. Now you have to have all of the required electrical access for them. So it's not like I'm plugging it in like I would plug in a boom box in my backyard. It's certainly more intricate than that. You have to have the electricity to come to it. But we felt that a primary structure was also addressing other concerns such as security in the area, having people on a site. We know that there's a risk in regards to safety to others, as well as if things are malfunctioning. So primary structure, we felt like helped to address that aspect and all of those concerns. Buffering between it and other properties, distance requirements between it and other types of districts and developments, and how the utility lines are. We are recommending requirements that utility lines be buried. If you look at a lot of the concerned and highly publicized data centers in both this country as well as others, you see a whole lot of poles, and so they become very unsightly. It also would change the concerns in regards to weather when the poles fall down, et cetera. So poles being above ground versus underground, we know is a safety risk. Special use standards for sound and noise requirements. Our key points are that they must have on-site monitoring of sound. That's going to be a requirement before they can receive a certificate of occupancy. So they're going to do a sound study to figure out what the sound levels are for the actual structure and the maintenance of that particular layout for that business. That will include the generators. It has time restrictions for conducting those testings, as well as the SPL limits. We have utility requirements for special use permit for a data center. They have to confirm that they have entered into an agreement with the utility. We don't regulate that utility, but we make sure they have that in place. As well as if they have any changes in the amount of use needed, then they would have to get a new special use permit. An additional key is we have provisions in place in regards to ownership by foreign adversaries. The last area, 94105, is the screening standards. The screening must be integrated into the landscape, so it can't be just you throw some stuff up, right? The screening serves a purpose of aesthetics and what you see, as well as it will have an effect in the sound barrier, as well as the accessibility of these highly charged menus, because they would be, as you can imagine, an attractive nuisance to children, right? When you want to go do something, that is not the place that you go and start cutting on wires. So these area screenings, which are what we already require for appliances, so if you have a generator or you have an air conditioner or some type of portion of your structure, we already require this screening. So we included that in this description and stated a height requirement or a height regulation, as well as a prohibition of chain link fencing. Unfortunately, we've seen some where they take the chain link fencing, which is obviously not a screening mechanism because you can see through it, and they'll slide those plastics through or do something to, so those are commonly then become a littering. So we want this to be an actual integrated screening system, not a random checking the box. So this is the conclusion of what those changes are that we're recommending. It's a holistic approach for a good neighbor. So a lot of the measurements for sound are from the perimeter of the property. So it's how you can design it as a property owner to ensure that you are a good neighbor to whomever you are next to. And those would change a little bit more in some of our protected areas. We have a decibel restriction for churches, daycare, et cetera, schools, than what we have for just general placement. So if you have any questions?
Any commissioners have any comments or questions they want to make? Anybody?
It's a lot. It's a lot to consume.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to thank Attorney Dodge and our city administrator, Amanda Ross, the departments that have put so much into this. They have really gone through this ordinance with a fine-tooth comb. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you. That being the case, now is the opportunity for public comments on this request. Could you please raise your hand if you're planning on speaking on this tonight? We're good. For any, we'll have 5 minutes. You'll get one opportunity to speak before we vote. If you could please come to the microphone that's up front here and fill in the sign-in sheet that's over here. I sure would appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and we'll stay as long as it takes.
We could just have you sign in right there. And then the mic will be up there for you. Thank you.
I will point out that the purpose of this is for the public to address their concerns to the commissioners. It is not a question and answer period. So what you've got to say, and if you've got any questions, if you say it in your comments, then the commissioners will go ahead and consider that and when they come back to question staff at the end. So I appreciate your cooperation in that area. Sir, were you the first one to sign in? Come on up.
This one right there? Oh. Sorry, I'm a little tall here.
Welcome.
I promise to put it back down.
Welcome.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. My name is Keaton Holland. I'm a resident of Ward 2. I live on 177 Country Ridge Way, and that's here in Branson. I've been here for roughly 6.5 years or so. Moved my family here before I deployed to Afghanistan. We loved it here, still love it here. Love the people, the Christian culture, the vibrancy of our town, and just the nature as well. These residents behind me will tell you there's about 15 deer just every night just going home from work. I work at Sight and Sound. It's about 10 minutes from where I live. And so just love, again, the community and the culture around here. And so obviously I'm here today because the concern is supposedly about what I've been hearing and talking with the other constituents in Ward 2 and also some comments from even our aldermen as well, as it seems that we're kind of being strong-armed a little bit by this company wanting to move into town just a mile from my house. And so just some quotes of comments from past meetings that the city council stated that due to Missouri law, that if a company submits a permit request and meets all the zoning requirements, the city has no ability to deny their application and must put it forth, which is why these folks have put in so much hard work to create these boundaries to protect us, which I do appreciate. But just in doing some quick research online, I think, I'm not sure if it would be land in this committee or more in the aldermen as well, but for an industry that's notorious for negatively impacting both local resources like electricity, nature, noise pollution, and driving down or even out local residents due to housing prices or even health impacts, it's moving, again, just right down by where I live. It's going to financially and could potentially physically hurt my family just based off of some articles and loose research from local universities in Maryland and Tennessee. Down the road in Arkansas, they're having issues with these mining facilities as well. I would, of course, I'm not a lawyer, so the city attorney can go more into specifics on this one, but I did read where back in 2023, the Missouri Supreme Court, I think it was the case of B.G. Olive versus the city of Creve Coeur. It's near St. Louis. Anyway, they took them to court, and essentially out of that committee hearing, the zoning process from the planning commission of that town, they thought, well, we're kind of governing based off of what the state allows us to have, right? The state has only given us limited authority in certain areas. And they took this all the way to Missouri Supreme Court, and the Missouri Supreme Court essentially backed the town, saying that they have a right to deny anything that they would label as a threat to their town or their constituents. And so I'm not sure if that's one way to leverage this, and you guys may have already explored that, but definitely it should be something that's explored. I do have citing of that, which I can get with folks afterwards as well. But regardless of that, the municipal code, chapter 94, right, it states kind of the heart behind why we do zoning, right? It's supposed to cover all the land in Branson, right? All the zoning districts, except to the extent of the provisions of the chapter, obviously. But in applying the provisions, the heart behind it, right? The heart behind your guys' job, right, is to promote the public safety, health, convenience, comforts, propriety, general welfare, and the preservation of personal and property rights. And the more I investigate into this business, all I see it's not promoting health. It's not promoting convenience, definitely not comfort. I don't want to listen to a hairdryer going off 24/7 down the road personally. Nor is it helping the general welfare of my community or my family. In the 1 to 3 mile radius, there's probably over 100 family units. And it's going to affect not only our general health, but also our property prices. So it's affecting us financially in that way as well. So I'm asking for, obviously, I know you guys have combed through it, but to try to find there's other legal levers to pull in that way. But also to take into consideration, and again, this may be outside of the purview of committee, but something to correspond maybe on Thursday as well, but to audit the environmental and financial impact of the people in the area. Right? Partnering with the county commissioner and local banks to see the financial effects on the ABC campground, on our even our own homes in that way. And again, the environmental impact. The Ruth and Paul Henning Nature Reserve, again, is about a mile from my house. So teaming up with the Missouri Department of Conservation, I'm not a huge fan of the feds, but even the EPA, if needed, to try to see what environmental factors play into it. I wrap up, I promise. But I just want to thank you guys again for coming through this. But I just implore you guys to please pull any legal levers in that way, because you literally have hundreds of families resting upon your guys' decision. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Next. Is there any other speakers signed up? I don't have a list, so No, sir, you got to go in the order you signed up. You signed up, you go.
Good evening. My name is Gabe Palacios. I'm with Silo Design Build and Wild Forge. We're a potential developer for a site here in Branson. I represent Terra Industry, who is a data mining and data processing center.
Please speak into the mic.
Thank you. So I've got 4 issues which I'd like to address as part of this. And again, just to second Ms. Denham's comments, excellent work by Ms. Dodge and the team. First, we are addressing in the definition sound pressure level in dB units as dBc.
Yes.
So industry standard is dBA. That is used by the National Institute for Health, OSHA, and the National Environmental Agency. So I would implore the commission to please adopt dBA. I have recently spoken with 4 different professionals in the industry and have hit dead ends with all of them, as dBc is not a widely used or adopted measurement rubric. And so I'm just encouraging you, if OSHA is the gold standard by which all of our safety, health, and wellness is assessed, they're using dBA. I believe that we should stick with that. The manufacturer of the equipment that we will be hopefully using on the site is also measured by that. And I believe that is, I just don't know where the dBc gets us, and I can't find enough information out there, nor can any of the manufacturers of the equipment or sound professionals that we're dealing with in the industry. So that's item number 1 is to use the gold standard DBA. Second, on the site requirements, they mentioned that these menus or these pre-built structures have a primary building attached to the project and built prior to their setting. And we do absolutely agree that a permanent structure is necessary. The reasoning behind having it there was that so you don't have these fly-by-night type scenarios where somebody comes in with these containers and sets them and then leaves destruction in the process. And she brought up an excellent point about having the electrical buried. We are also in favor of this. By burying the electrical infrastructure underground, you spend an enormous amount of money over what it would cost to bring it in overhead, thereby ensuring that you're investing in the space where you're putting these things. I think that a simple change of the word prior to, so the full intention is to have a permanent structure, but having that permanent structure set prior to the containers can in some instances kill a project because of the PPA or the power purchase agreement with the utility company requires a certain level or threshold of electricity to be used, whereas a data processing or AI processing center uses less electricity than the mining operations. You'd have to get those up and running in order to get the secondary one going. And you need the building after you get the others going so that you can control it. So it's all the language, everything's good with it except for the term prior. I think in conjunction with, it's under the same permit, anything of that sort. So we're in general agreement. I think just the word prior to kind of, it makes a big difference in that instance. Next, there is, so in the sound and noise requirements, there's some discussion here about there will not be an issuance of certificate of occupancy until the sound can be tested. And we run into a little bit of an issue there with the chicken and the egg, right? We need to have the facility up and built to get a certificate of occupancy. We can't necessarily go and put all the computers in there and turn them on if we have to have a building prior, and then we can't also have the sound tested until we've gotten a certificate of occupancy and put the things in place. I would simply suggest that maybe there's some terminology about a temporary certificate of occupancy to get it up and get tested, and maybe there's a grace period of 90 to 120 days to monitor the sound, get things tested and engineered, a grace period simply, by which time we can have all that equipment put in. It's kind of like, we can't put the equipment in until we have a CO, but we're saying we can't get a CO until we test the sound. And so just need to figure out how to word that a little more appropriately so that we can get that actually put into place. And finally, in the last 30 seconds, I would just like to address the previous young man's comments about the general welfare. I would like to reiterate that a project like what we're bringing to the table brings 10 high-paying year-round jobs to the area, and as well reduces the utility costs of those that are using the same utility provider. So this is quite an asset to the community, and what we're recommending are the highest and most stringent sound level attenuation requirements out there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person is signed up. Nikki, could you get that list and just kind of read the person's name? That would kind of help us, I think. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Cherry Webster. I live in the city limits of Branson. So first I'd like to make a comment about the announcement at this meeting. I kind of stumbled across it. I do follow Mayor Milton's Facebook page, and that's how I got the initial, because I follow it, I get an automatic announcement. So then when I went to the agendas and minutes on the city website, I could see that there were actually 2 meetings, one of which was the Sunday afternoon public hearing, but that wasn't even announced. And the notice that I got from the Facebook account was on Saturday morning for a Sunday afternoon and a Monday night meeting. And that was the only place that I saw an announcement. Many times the city uses nextdoor.com to make a lot of announcements. For example, the brush pickup and other things like that. And that would have been a good place to put it because it operates differently from Facebook. Facebook, you have to be following the person or the city, but with nextdoor.com, everybody gets your post. So as to the actual ordinance that you're proposing tonight, I think this is a good start. It kind of resembles the strategy used for the drag shows in putting together some terminology, terms defined, and hurdles to establish, so that might make things difficult to comply. But that may be our only approach to take, since it's probably illegal to just say, we don't want this kind of business here. And I think you really need to look, do you want this kind of business here? Because from what I'm seeing is the only revenue you're going to get out of it is whatever sales portion of the sales tax for the electrical usage that they're going to be using. There is no sales tax on this type of business. I don't know if that's something that you can consider adding. I almost wonder if Branson may have been a targeted jurisdiction because it had no ordinances that were specific to data mining centers. I've read articles that are both for and against data mining centers, and there is the risk of being a mobile operation. You just pack up and leave, and you might even be leaving an electric bill that goes unpaid. So it may be that perhaps we were targeted, an unsuspecting locality where the business might get up and running right away, and months later the city figures out what they really got themselves into. I did attend the study session on data centers several weeks ago, and the broker who spoke stated that his prospect for this business had identified a specific location for a data center, and that it was basically a mobile facility. It would not need a water source. It would need a significant electrical service. It would have a manager who's experienced, so it'd be somebody coming from out of the area, and 4 other employees. The gentleman that just spoke said it's going to be 10. So I don't know which is right. At the study session, the White River Electric Co-op stated that they had the capacity to accommodate this particular project. But what wasn't discussed was, well, what happens when they decide they don't want to be here anymore, and it's mobile, and you just pack up and move out. And like I said, an electric bill may be unpaid. Who pays for that? Well, the electric company isn't going to take that out of their profits. They're going to pass it along, probably through a rate increase to the residents. Not only that, but a lot of industries cluster together. You see that in Silicon Valley. You see that in medical centers, particularly if there's a university hospital. You'll have other different complementary businesses that cluster together. If that were to happen here and we have yet another data center or 2, then what happens to the White River Electric capacity level? Are they going to need to add more capacity in construction? Who pays for the construction? Is it going to be the data center company that comes in? Or is a rate increase going to be passed along to all the residents to pay for that? So, in addition to that, you have proposed a special use permit. In a special use permit, a lot of times the planning department can make the criteria determine whether or not the vendor or the contractor already meets that criteria and approves it. I think with a controversial situation like the data centers, that perhaps you should consider a special use permit that has to also go through the Planning Commission in a public hearing and get an approval, and have to go through a Board of Aldermen hearing and get approval. That gives us 3 levels of review.
Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Next speaker we have is Bob Hewells.
Thank you. I don't know if I can get this all in, but first of all, I am the broker who talked. And no, we didn't say it was mobile. We will be nothing mobile on the entire project. I don't know if I can do much better. How about that?
Thanks, Bob.
I don't know. I don't use one of these for a living. I am concerned with some of the construction of the ordinance, and that I would like to address. We're talking about an ordinance that you're putting a lot of time in. We're putting all kinds of rules and stipulations in it, and then you want us to come in for a special use permit. I don't see the reason for that. If you're going to put it all in here, and by the way, I wanted to go through a special use permit 40 days ago. That would have brought out all of the information you need, and all of these people need to know that we're not talking about a North Carolina disaster that someone brought up and we've had in our presentation since the beginning. So I am worried about that. The primary structure thing is kind of a chicken and egg thing too. So the hard part for people to understand is this is multiple businesses, one of which is a crypto mining system. The crypto mining system has to go in first and be operational in order for the electric company to power up and service the systems. And then once that's going, then the real data center can come in, which is a 9,000 square foot building and a 7,500 square foot building, and those can be powered up. There's not enough usage for those centers to fit the bill here, so that's what it is. White River Electric is the supplier there. They have more than enough services. You do a special contract. They already have a contract with them, and you can't get that unless they have the services available. So there's no reason to worry about future growth or future problems. This subdivision, where this is being proposed, which I know we're not supposed to talk about an individual project, but that's what we're here about. This project is proposed on an industrial park that was designed specifically for these type of uses. It actually has a neighboring property outside the city limits that is a data center. And that's what this is all built for. This industrial park has redundant fiber optic. It has redundant electricity, not just one, but two different sections, so that it'll come in from different feeds if there were to be a power problem. And it has enough volume to handle it. It was all built for that reason. I have a manufacturing plant coming in a few months that wants to put in an application. It's a plastics manufacturing. They'll actually use as much electricity, and they'll have much more heat and actually probably have a terrible smell compared to the very no noise to speak of. It's about the equal to a hairdryer, vacuum cleaner at 50 feet. Or 500 feet, excuse me. And so that's taken care of. We did have a time limit and still do. We were able to get with the city and say, if you can get it done sooner than 100 days, then maybe we can save the project. It can go somewhere else, but that's a ridiculous thing for us to do. This is exactly what the state of Missouri has chosen as a target industry. It's the industry that we've asked for to come to this town. It's high-paying jobs. One man, who's already moved here, by the way, is an owner of the business, and he's moving here to oversee it. Everyone else will be hired from here. And they're $75,000 to $125,000 jobs, and most of them can do it here. We actually have, OTC actually has courses in this exact process. I couldn't explain it if I had to. They aren't even really computers. They're just graphic cards that run on their own, I guess. I'm not sure. But they have people who are trained in all this stuff. And so we're going to be able to fill those jobs from locals. The concerns that we're giving out are valid concerns from several years ago. What you have to think of is, you guys deal with buildings and codes and zoning all the time. Suppose that I came to you and said I want to build a 6-story hotel. I don't want to put fire protection in it. I don't want to put elevators in it. And the windows are going to be able to be opened with like sashes, okay? All of those things are no-nos, but all of those were okay 80 years ago. Well, 80 years ago in the building and hotel building world is equal to about 8 years in this industry. That's how fast this has grown and how it's changed physically. This industry will not have those problems. It already has the sound addressed. We were worried about water. There's zero water usage unless you want to count the bathroom. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, we have Candace Cook.
Thank you very much for being here. And again, I want to echo the incredible job this ordinance has done. It has been absolutely protective of the citizens, which we asked to do. And we were heard, and that's great. And welcome, you guys. I met you, and as nice as you are, I'm just going to be candid. I moved from Murphy, North Carolina, which you conveniently put in here, right, in your manual. And you talked about the problems in Murphy and other places as though it were antique history.
Ma'am, could you do me a
One
favor?
for eight.
Could you speak in the microphone and address us so we can hear you? 'Cause
Yes, one
you're
for
not
every.
addressing them, you're addressing us. Thank you.
One for every 8 years, et cetera, right? And that I can tell you, China just banned crypto mining, as you know, in 2018. Thus the influx. So let's get our timeline straight. And first of all, respectably, Mr. Hewell, no offense to you, but you're probably the wrong spokesperson because you are to gain from the transaction, and that's all I'm going to say about that. The other thing that I want to address is the good gentleman mentioned the industry standard. Industry standard. This is so nebulous. This whole industry is so nebulous. It's in its infancy. And that is with regard to the industry standard that he mentioned about all these high-paying jobs, which, trust me, historically, that has not panned out anywhere. Look on the online and what Texas is dealing with, and I can attest personally about Murphy, North Carolina. Same thing. So the industry standard for the AADBA versus the CDBA, it doesn't take a lot of research to figure out that that's a completely different monitoring portion, and the accuracy of the CDBA is much better, and they want the ADBA because it's more forgiving. So file that under your hat. Also, why are we asking for special permission? That's a great way to come out of the gate and be defeated for you guys. And to ask this city to bend the rules for this is not a good start. You're asking us to already reconfigure this ordinance, which is done with great diligence and great insight so that we can protect our community and look down the road. And this forward-thinking ordinance has been presented, and now we're getting pushback already. That doesn't bode well. You're talking about the testing, damaged chronology. I mean, really? You want to get everything up and running, and then you want to say, oh, that's going to violate the noise ordinance. What then? That defeats the whole purpose of this. You should not get special treatment. And by the way, when you talk about free enterprise is awesome, and that's what we're about in the United States. And it's all about serving the community too, from our perspective. But when you talk about free enterprise, everyone knows the law of good business. The law of good business is everybody wins. In this situation, we don't win. They win. They get lots of money. You know it. It's a great way to generate revenue. Otherwise, they wouldn't be touting $75,000 salaries for just a few people. Just a few people. And those numbers are inflated as far as the hiring of the number. And how do I know that? Because the same thing happened in Murphy when they slid in under the radar, and the good lady brought up the fact that they preyed upon us, or that they're attempting to prey, and I'm going to use that word, it's predatory, because we didn't have any zoning. But the news is tonight, we have a council and we have people on this committee, and we are a community that cares about our city. And we care about our environment, and we care about the future. So this ordinance is hopefully going to be put into place. And as you mentioned to me, Mr. Mock, if you couldn't get it, pushed through like a good salesperson, if you couldn't get it pushed through in a timely fashion, we're going to have to go somewhere else, he said, to another state. I think that's a splendid idea. Go somewhere else, because this community doesn't have room for you. And respect to you, though.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Next speaker, we have Christina Crowell.
I'm Christina Crowell, and I'm the owner of America's Best Campground, which is directly in line with, I think, the only industrial park. I don't know how many industrial parks Branson has, but the one that we're basically talking about is the one that is next to my campground. I want to thank the people that wrote the ordinance and spent hours of time developing that, and I would like to ask for that to approve the ordinance with modifying lines 162 and lines 222 to include campground RV park. I also am asking that the request for allowing the building the primary building to be built after a permit to not be put into the ordinance is not in the ordinance right now as the way it's written. And I would like to ask that that not be put in as was requested. The fact that they want to give 90 to 120 days for the sound would be detrimental to my business. My business has been here for 30 years. We have over 11,000 guests that stayed at my campground last year. They would not appreciate having 90 to 120 days. I have some that stay there full time. I have, like I said, guests that come and go, but they would not appreciate the testing of the noise for 90 to 120 days. That's not acceptable. We too have 14 to 16 employees. No, we don't pay our $75,000 and up, but they do earn a nice living, and they are very proud of our park. We are the #1 awarded park in Branson, and I would appreciate you guys supporting the local and looking at these things for us. I'm not really sure where crypto mining facility has benefited any community. I would like to know where this has been put in with the type of structures that they're talking about. I would like to go to one, and really, they say it's going to be soundproof and all of this, but I'm really not sure about all of that, and I would like to see one, and I haven't been able with all of my research to find one where it has been something that's benefited the community. So I don't know, do I need to do anything else on that? Modify the lines 162 and 222? That was my request because it doesn't really include us, but we're about 900 and something feet from where this project that's being presented, where the industrial park is. So I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Do we have another speaker, Nikki?
We have 2 more speakers. The next one is James Haining.
Sure.
Hello, my name is James Haining. I'm not a resident of Branson, and I wasn't expecting to speak tonight. I came tonight mostly to learn, but I wanted to address something that was said because it actually falls in my area of expertise. I've spent several years here in town as a sound man at one of the local theaters, and before that, I spent more than half my life as a sound man on the road, and I studied under some of the guys that I consider to be the best audio engineers that I could imagine existing. And I just want to address the fact that as an audio engineer, I would not ever use A weighting to measure the dB levels, and I would never hire an audio engineer that would use A weighting to measure the audio levels, because A weighting is the way the human ear perceives sound based on a specific EQ curve. C weighting is the actual dB volume. To change your standard from C weighting to A weighting would be tantamount to asking your local weatherman to report only based on the feels like temperature instead of the actual temperature. So I wanted to just clarify that in common language. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next speaker we have is Jarrett Julison.
our new resident. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jared Jillison. I'm one of the co-founders, co-owners of Terra Hosting. I'm also the CTO. I recently moved out here to Missouri from Phoenix. So I'm living in Hollister right now, the neighboring town to Branson. It's been great moving out here. You guys are super nice out here. So some of the people's concerns is with just, I hear a lot about the cryptocurrency mining. That's only one aspect of our company. The other company that would be on site is Terra Compute, which does AI and large language models, stable diffusion. We have a current site for that one right now in Melbourne, which is about 10 minutes away from SpaceX. And that one's 100% quiet, obviously, because it's a closed data center. So the jobs we do plan to hire, sorry, I'm nervous when public speaking.
Relax.
I'm usually not the guy that does this here, so. But I did confirm with our CFO and CEO before that we do plan to hire 10 people within the first year of opening, and over the course of 3 years, hiring at least 20 plus people for on-site. And this would be a range of people working for us doing ASIC repairs, learning how to build, AI servers and doing things like that, doing 100 gig networking. I'm all self-taught. I've taken all the courses for MikroTik. I learned them all myself. So we would teach these people how to do actual enterprise level of networking for real traditional data centers like you would see at AWS or Google. We do plan on putting a canopy over the containers so they couldn't just be uplifted at a moment's notice. And this is for a multitude of reasons. One is to obviously for the elements, right, for snow or anything else, as well as protecting the equipment and people moving in between the containers. So we do plan on having a structure over the containers. And then if anybody has any questions about anything about our company or questions for me, I could stay a few minutes after this and answer anybody's questions or concerns.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
Nikki?
Next speaker we have is Alan Malk. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
My name is Alan Mock. I'm one of the developers and working with Terra. We've heard from a lot of people tonight. We started this project looking for a site almost 2 years ago. We started to work with White River, and White River has been excellent to work with. They have the power. By selling it to us, it's going to lower their overall rate because they'll be able to get a cheaper power from the co-op grid that they work with. The lady that got up and spoke before me said, well, we might stick them with a light bill. Unfortunately, she didn't take the time to get in touch with the folks from White River. White River's representative has been here and spoke before you and assured you that the work that we have put into this project laid the groundwork for a very successful project, not just for White River, but for us and the community. We had to pay, as part of the agreement, a service fee for anything that they do. We pay for all the underground, all the equipment, all the hookups, plus the fact that any future bills that come in within a certain period, they have to be paid, and there is also money put aside that White River has paid in advance for the electric bill. So that's something that nobody looked at. Keep in mind the construction on this project is very expensive, and we're willing to pay that. The gentleman that just moved here from Terra, we were talking earlier, I'd like to open up an opportunity for you all to come down and look at the site that they have currently. And the young lady spoke about the campground. I'll be happy to take you down there. You come down and look at it. When we started with Bob to look at a site, this site has been sitting vacant in the center of your town for over 20 years. There hasn't been one person approach Bob or anybody that's associated with it with any structural plans. And you get somebody that lives far away from it, and I would have concerns. But we went around, drove around, looked at it. It's measured outside the circle that will have any effect. And I'm offering to have you come down to Florida and you walk around, and if you can hear it, then so be it. The other thing you said about the employees, I've stayed at your campground, and I've talked to some of your employees. How many employees, you have 10 or 11 employees? How many? 15? How many of them make over $20 an hour?
Sir, would you please turn around? You're addressing us,
I'm
not the
sorry.
audience.
Oh, how many of the employees that she have make over $20 an hour?
That's not anything that we're concerned about.
Well, she pointed to me and said about high-paying jobs, and there are high-paying jobs. The other thing we've done is we've reached out to the universities, and we've made plans within the site for education so that they can work with universities and train future people to work on these computer systems. That's at the company's expense, not the city's. We looked at this as a good opportunity, a partnership opportunity, and we believe it would help Branson. And come down and take a look and see what we're doing and make up your own mind. Thank you very much.
You bet. Any other speakers?
That's it.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions or anything that they want to follow up and ask staff before we proceed any further? We'll just work on down. I had it. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I just had a comment, and I appreciate everybody coming out. The staff has done an amazing job, and I just have to commend you completely on that. From a lot of what I hear this evening is about a particular business, instead of it being about fixing the ordinance that needs to be in place. And it may not be your company, but what happens with the next company? I've heard things change within 8 years, but it's not about today, it's about 8 years from now. What about 16 years from now? The ordinance itself is what's in play and not a particular business, being it data processing center or, mining. It's about putting the ordinance itself together. Sometimes I've heard things that this is redundant and this is redundant. And I understand that, but it might not be 8 or 10 years from now. And that's what we're trying to address here, is put the ordinance in place and not pick out a particular business. Like I said, it's from 10 years from now. As far as testing, I understand. But if you've ever seen them test in a football stadium, you don't have to have everything in there at the particular time. I just appreciate everything that's been put together as far as the staff. And like I said, it's not just about your business. It's about things to me that come in the future. And that's why I'll be asking for it exactly the way it's written. I think they did an amazing job.
Any other commissioners have any comments or? Yes, sir.
I have a couple questions for staff. Who should I address those to?
Holly and Amanda.
So there were a couple things brought up. One was about the primary structure should be required prior to the installation of an MENU. One thing I don't see or referenced anywhere else in code is what's the definition of a primary structure?
Primary structure is defined differently through our building code, and it's regulated in our building code. If you look throughout zoning, there is not a definition of a primary structure because it changes depending on which building code it's going to apply to. Because of that, there's a primary use and an accessory use. The menus would be an accessory use. They could be a little bit like an appliance, but they're more of an accessory use. But yes, we do not define it because that definition would have been huge to incorporate and to be able to regulate properly interacting with Chapter 18's building and maintenance code. So within the building code, there's existing structure codes that would be applicable as well. It does specifically prohibit a menu from being a primary structure.
So I guess what I'm getting at is why we're not incorporating into this some reference to the other places in code. What I'm getting at is why we didn't reference some other areas of code that define what that is, because this is specific to data centers. We're saying
Correct.
specifically data centers have to have a specific primary structure.
That would not be a menu as it's presented to
So-
you, yes.
So any building that I build that's not an MENU qualifies as a primary structure?
Correct. Presuming it
that's all I was getting
qualifies
at.
as a primary structure.
Was there a particular reason that data centers were specifically put in here as a special use permit when we have other buildings like marijuana medical testing facilities, medical research laboratories, and medical marijuana testing facilities are permitted by right? What was the reasoning behind making this a special use permit?
Marijuana is permitted by right pursuant to the constitutional amendment. We had no choice in that. In this, especially because of the concerns that were raised by citizens and residents in the vicinity of a potential data center, the concern is in regards to that effect. So if you have it as permitted, it must be allowed. If it is a special use, they have to come to you and they have to show that they meet the requirements so that they will be good neighbors. It also is the opportunity to set parameters that they must comply with before they are allowed to develop that property or utilize that property in that manner. So as long as they meet it and it's approved and they meet the conditions, it would be allowed.
Thank you. And then what was the reasoning behind DBC instead of DBA?
The frequency mechanism, so A is a more limited frequency than a C. A C has a wider range of frequencies that it detects. So it would incorporate all the types of noises from an industrial structure. Understand this would be applicable to data centers, and it is the regulation within our zoning code for an industrial use. So it would have a different, the understanding is that within an industrial use, our concern is not the person who is speaking from the front door. The concern is the noise created from that industrial use or that manufacturing that's going on.
Thank you. I think that gives all of us a lot of clarity on why those decisions were made.
Any other commissioners? Anybody? Yes, sir. Oh, okay.
That was a wave, not a please.
Howie, I think that's it. I got a comment, and then we're done. Get ready to vote. I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I just want to assure you gentlemen, I've been involved in this thing from the very beginning. I've spent quite a few hours, and that's nothing compared to what administrative staff has spent, and the planning folks. At no time have I ever heard that we're directing this ordinance towards trying to prohibit a specific business. At no time. Also, Mr. Yules, I appreciate your effort. You're doing nothing but doing what you're supposed to do, providing a service to your clients, and I appreciate that. If this ordinance or an ordinance like it is not passed, what could have happened if the board had done nothing is they could have come in, no special use permit, they could have come in, and this would have been a done deal. We wouldn't have had any discussion. It would have been built. what we've tried to do is come up with an ordinance. I've done a little research. Based on my research and meetings I've been to, I am personally very proud of this ordinance. I think it could become a model for people to use somewhere else. And we've tried to incorporate the best of others, but most important of all, we tried to make it fair for the companies that are coming in and the people that are here. And that's all this is. This isn't a meeting about a particular business. It's about this particular ordinance, as was pointed out. So you will have an opportunity. If you don't like the way it comes out of here tonight, you have an opportunity to appear, and there'll be another public comment period Thursday. And then in 2 weeks, when it comes up again, it could be requested to be taken off the consent agenda, and they can have another chance to speak. So just want to thank everybody for the effort. I want to thank you all tonight for your participation. No, sir. Well, no, Bob, will you sit down? It ain't going to happen. Sit down, please. We're done. Thank you. If no one else wanted to speak, if none of the commission wants to speak, hearing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve the request for municipal code amendment throughout Chapter 94, including but not limited to the industrial zoning district, noise regulations, and special use requirements for data centers, data mining, and similar industries. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Formal roll call?
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinoski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
We have 8 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
This concludes the public hearing for tonight's agenda. We do have some other items. You're all welcome to stay. If you like a Hallmark movie, you'll love this. The next item on the agenda is to elect the Secretary of the Planning Commission for the 24-25 term. In the past, we've accepted formal nominations and written vote is collected and tallied. Does anyone have any questions, or does anyone want to volunteer?
I have a question.
Yes.
What does the secretary have to do?
Nothing.
We've never had one.
Absolutely. No, you've had one, but it's been handled by staff. But nothing. But we got to go through the motions. I'll now accept nominations for the position of secretary. Does anybody want to nominate somebody or nominate themselves?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to nominate Charles Hillis for secretary.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other nominations? We have a winner.
We'll do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinoski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
We have 8 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Staff, do you have any reports for the commission? No reports?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Staff. Okay. Any of the commissioners have any reports they want to make?
I would just like to state that at our Board of Aldermen meeting, we had a change of presentation at the meetings. The director, regarding each item that goes on the agenda, takes notes of all the public comments that are made to relook at everything. And I just wanted to sorry, your name, at the America's Best Campground, Ms. Crowell. I'm sure that your request was taken down for further discussion so that that can be an option at Board of Aldermen, but at least it was presented and notes were taken. Just to reassure you, every voice that spoke tonight, we thank very much, because it really does help with how we vote and everything that needs to be taken into consideration. So thank you for being here.
Any other aldermen have any reports?
Commissioner?
Yes.
Just 1 second. I wanted to catch Commissioner Hillis. At this time, would you like to delegate the responsibilities of secretary to staff?
Yes, I would.
Good choice.
We'll just make sure to have that in the
Good choice.
minutes so that is done. Thank you so much.
The last item on the agenda would be adjournment. Please note that the August 6, 2024 meeting has been canceled. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the July 29, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Now call for a vote.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Gore?
Yes.
We have 8 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried at 7:15 p.m.
Thank you all. No, they didn't.